Today the court sent a very clear message that political discourse is just that, it's discourse. And that if we're going to change policy in our country, it has to be done through civil debate, not through armed acts of terrorism. Mr. Corkins will be spending a lot of time thinking about his crimes. I think in the wake of Monday's attack, all of us at the Family Research Council are again reminded of how grateful we are for the actions, the heroic actions of Mr. Leo Johnson, our building manager, who stepped in the way and averted what could have been a massive loss of life. And for that, we're very grateful. We hold no animosity toward Mr. Corkins. We simply wanted to see justice done and a message sent that this type of behavior in America is not appropriate and will not be tolerated, and that message was sent today. And I'll ask my colleague Leo Johnson to address you as well. Thank you.
I was very pleased with the judge's sentence today. I think justice was served, and it was a very tragic situation that would have been a lot worse had I not intervened. I just give all praise to God for giving me the strength to act and do what I needed to do to keep that situation from becoming, another Navy Yard situation or another Boston situation. You guys have any questions?
Mr. Johnson, when he was in front of you at the desk, he bent over. Those videos were very harrowing. He bent over to get something out of his bag. Why did you get up and go around?
Well, I do have some previous security experience, and I knew that something was amiss there. It made no sense for him to put his bag on the floor when the counter was available. It wasn't a heavy bag from appearances, so it just triggered an instinct in me.
Really? What about it exactly, though, struck you that he might be up to no good? Was there anything about his demeanor? Or?
No, there was nothing about his demeanor. He was very calm. There was nothing to suggest that he was up to anything, but the thing that gave him away was that where he placed his backpack and his actions after that.
We saw him.
Johnson, they don't have cameras in the courtroom, but could you repeat to us, you heard and looked at Mr. Corkins in the court. Could you repeat to us what you said to him?
I told Mr. Corkins that, although I forgave him, I would never forget because of the pain and suffering that myself and my family have to go through. And I also told him, I don't know if he believes in God or not. If he didn't, I suggested that he should find God. If he did, he should praise him and thank him every day, because God not only saved my life that day, but he saved his as well.
Did you get any look back from him? Did he meet your eyes?
Yes, he did make eye contact. He was looking at me the whole time.
What was he like? What were you reading from him by looking at him in the courtroom?
He was pretty subdued. He seemed somewhat remorseful. It was kind of hard to gauge, if he was really remorseful or not. He seemed to be.
Tell us how you've suffered and your family, both physically, emotionally, and maybe financially.
I've had several surgeries. I've had severe blood clots in my right lung that I've had to be hospitalized again, twice for. My mother, I told the story of my mother and grandmother. My mother was in the courtroom today, and my grandmother was 103 years old, and I'm their primary caretaker. So not only was it a physical challenge for me, but mental also, because I take care of them, and I was incapacitated, and that played heavily on me mentally.
Why didn't you shoot him?
The Lord told me not to. At the end of the day, I had an opportunity to do to him what he tried to do to me and my coworkers. And the Lord spoke to me. He told me to spare his life. His life had some redeeming value.
You mean during that fracas where things are going so fast and adrenaline, you actually considered what God might be telling you at that moment?
Absolutely. Everything slowed down for me. I mean, it was a chaotic moment. It was a chaotic situation. But everything slowed down for me. I was thinking very clearly. And I was enraged at the fact, when I finally felt the pain from the gunshot, I was enraged. I looked at my arm and I was enraged. But as quickly as that rage came upon me, the Lord spoke to me and he told me not to take his life. So as quickly as that rage came upon me, it subsided. And I was able to think clearly, and I put the weapon.
Mr. Corkins begged for his life? Mr. Corkins begged for his life?
Yes, he did beg for his life.
Did you think that if the police had entered at that moment and saw you holding a gun, they might have shot you?
Well, they did answer at that time. I had co-workers down at that time as well, and they identified me and let the police know who I was. In that moment, I looked up and I saw the police, and I realized the situation that they were looking at. And from that vantage point, it appeared that I was the perpetrator and he was the victim.
A technical detail. He shot 3 times. Was it the first bullet that hit you, or the?
It was the second bullet.
Second bullet. Let me ask you this: how do you keep going after a guy after you've been wounded?
Well, part of it was adrenaline. The other part was I had to fight for my life. I realized that if I didn't get the gun from Mr. Corkins, he was going to kill me, and he was going to kill all of my coworkers. I had to fight for my life, literally, fighting for my life.
In that video, when he fires that first shot, you're shielding yourself. Did you at some point think you were shot? What were you thinking at that moment?
No, I didn't think I was shot until I was actually shot, and it sort of just, we were engaged at that point, and it just sort of blew my arm away from him. So I knew I was hitting at that point. You know, the emphasis was just strictly, I have to get the gun. That was my sole purpose, my sole train of thought.
Were you still holding?
What it's like going back to work now at FRC?
It's great. I was very much looking forward to getting back to work. I've worked there for 14 years. I'm in full support of the work they do. I know what kind of work they do, and I was excited about getting back to work.
Were you still holding?
I am. Yes, I am.
Were you holding the pistol when the police were on the scene?
Yes, I was.
And did you drop it immediately, or?
They told me to drop the weapon, and when I looked up and I realized what they saw, I stepped to the side. I raised my arms out, you know, got the weapon away from my body in a non-threatening manner, and I sat it on the floor.
Mr. Johnson, the prosecution asked for 45 years. The defense asked for 11. He got, I think, roughly 25. What's your reaction to the sentence?
My honest opinion is that I would have preferred to see him do more, but at the end of the day, I'm satisfied with the sentence he got. He does have some mental issues, although that's not an excuse for what he did because it was a heinous act. But at the end of the day, I was satisfied that justice was served in this case.
I won't use the word closure, but does this put any degree of an end to this chapter for you at all, to see him now go away for 25 years?
It does, and I would use the word closure. There is some closure for not only myself, but for my family. We can move past this and just go on to our normal life. Just get things back to normal. It's important for us.
And Mr. Johnson, there were several references to the Navy.
Yes.
Have you thought about that?
I did. The morning that incident happened, I was watching on the news, and immediately just took me back to our situation and what could have happened had I not intervened, had not God given me the strength to act that day.
Mr. Perkins, you also addressed that issue. Could you tell us what your thoughts were?
Well, very much like Leo's, if you look back over the last 18 to 24 months, where there have been cases of shooters, lone shooters, that have sought to take a number of lives, they in fact in every case have but are. And it is a reminder not only of the heroism of Leo, but I will tell you, as a Christian organization, we are not in any way apologetic to believe that the Lord's hand of protection was upon us that day, and we're grateful for that. But we're also extremely sensitive to the victims of other shootings. We know exactly what many of those families are going through, and in fact, there are members of our staff that had friends that were at the Navy Yard that were shot and killed on Monday. And it's not just the 80 people that work directly for the Family Research Council, it's our families as well. We have had spouses that have had to undergo psychological treatment and counseling because of the anxiety created by this shooting. And again, the message here that was sent today is that civil discourse is just that, it's civil discourse. There is no room in our society for people to perpetrate acts of terrorism to advance a political cause. And those responsible for that, Mr. Corkins and other organizations that promoted and really in some ways inspired his behavior, like the Southern Poverty Law Center, they should take note. This type of behavior will not be tolerated in America, and we will continue to speak out and aggressively work within the public policy arena, exercising our First Amendment rights. I will tell you, we have taken additional precautions now that Mr. Corkins has acted as he has, but we are not in any way backing up from our engagement in public policy here in Washington, D.C. or any other place in this country. We're Americans. We have First Amendment rights. We're going to exercise those rights. And those who seek to use violence to stifle other citizens, I believe got a message today that will not be tolerated in our system of justice.
Thank you so much.
Perkins, I just ask you, do you have a comment on the judge? Both he and you referred to the political message that Corkins supposedly was trying to advance gay rights. The judge discussed that as well. Did you agree or disagree with anything he said about that?
Well, I agree with him that that is not the way that you advance political discourse, by arming yourself with a 9mm pistol, 95 rounds of ammunition, and 15 Chick-fil-A sandwiches in which you want to kill people and smear Chick-fil-A sandwiches in their face. That's not how America works. And that was the message that was sent today. That is not political discourse, and that will not be tolerated.